I now recognize myself for 5 minutes. Many of our closest allies have experienced suspected foreign interference with their subsea cables, where attribution took time, required extensive coordination across governments and industry. U.S. operators worry about similar activity along routes connecting the United States to Europe and Asia, especially since no single federal agency is clearly responsible for subsea cable security. Understanding how the U.S. government should organize itself is essential for building a credible, responsible framework. Mr. Botting, from the industry's perspective, what role should DHS play when operators detect potentially concerning PRC or Russian activity in your cable routes, landing stations, or what kind of support would make DHS more effective in that role?
Thank you for the question. The main thing that stands out to me is cable operators obviously have access to a certain set of information through operating those cables, but they don't have a holistic view of the adversary. The US government has access to what could potentially be a lot of valuable information that it could help them to make appropriate risk determinations about potential future activities by adversaries. And so I think it's essential that we establish a two-way threat intelligence sharing mechanism that ensures that appropriate people within those companies, depending whether that has to happen at a classified level, it could be people with security clearances, it could happen at the unclassified level, that they have access to information about the latest and greatest threats emerging from adversaries. This isn't sort of pie in the sky, this concept of two-way threat intelligence sharing. Our allies over in Australia are implementing something similar at the moment for systems of critical SOCI, systems of critical infrastructure, I believe it is. Anyway, they are requiring that companies report incidents, but also creating a mechanism for voluntary sharing of information by critical infrastructure into the government, which the government can then enrich with their own intelligence and share back out with critical infrastructure so that they are responding to the latest and greatest intelligence as far as the threat profile. For me, that is one of the key things that DHS specifically, I think, would be well positioned to facilitate.
And it should be noted, we have similar type of cooperative agreements with nation states, whether it be the Five Eyes, Seven Eyes, 14 Eyes groups. Obviously, these are private companies, and so different protocols would be needed, but that being said, your point is well taken. Dr. Cronin, based on recent cable incidents in Europe, what lessons should guide U.S. planning for attribution, public communication, and multinational coordination when foreign interference is suspected?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I am struck by the commonality in the recommendations across the panelists. And first, how greater resilience can help to protect these cables and also to deter. If adversaries know that any attack is going to cause minimal disruption, that should reduce their incentive to do it in the first place. Second, attribution. As was pointed out, often we don't know who's responsible. Even in these cases of the Chinese attacks against Matsu Islands and these recent cases in the Gulf of Finland, questions about was this intentional, was it deliberate or not, and so having better information to attribute the source and of the attacks would be helpful. And then third, an ability to hold those responsible accountable. In this case of the Gulf of Finland, Finland tried to prosecute the seafarers and the Finnish courts throughout the case, and so if there's going to be no consequences for these kind of attacks, it obviously makes it easier for adversaries to continue. So I think those are the three areas where we need to focus.
Well, Mr. Strong, we've seen where these disruptions have an immediate impact, but yet the recovery period is often slow, laborious, and then attribution is a problem. If the PRC or Russia disrupted several U.S. connected cables simultaneously, what sectors would experience problems first? What are the challenges? And what kind of repair ship capabilities, availability do we have? And you've got about 30 seconds, sir.
Thanks for the extra challenge there. The United States is connected right now by 97 cables. We're really blessed as a nation to have such resilience. If there were purposeful cuts to some of these cables, it likely would not be felt or even noticed by most Americans. It would take an incredibly concerted effort to simultaneously cut enough to cause noticeable damage. I could say more later.
We'll get back to it.